Hello retro fans! While working on the different FPGASid adapters, I have already created two videos about the usage of the adapters, one in English language and one in German language. And I have kind of missed one part in this kind of, introduction video. And this is the so-called Mixsid replacement adapter. And I have to admit that this adapter has created some kind of confusion because, well, people had some kind of a different understanding of the meaning of this adapter. And basically, that's the main reason for kind of creating this video, but perhaps this would be a little bit boring, and therefore I decided to kind of extend the topic a little bit. And I'm going to talk about, let's say, the reason for the creation of this adapter and how to use this. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my, let's say, C64s created especially for the usage with Mssiah to make, let's say, music. And therefore we will have some kind of hardware review chit-chat as well. And before we got lost in some kind of what are we going to do today talks, let's jump into the topic and have a look at my desk. And this looks basically like this. So this is more or less a standard kind of bread bin C64. It's not an Aldi, it's not a C64G. It is just a kind of whitish case with a kind of customized keyboard. And what you can see here right now is basically that I have attached a SD to IC device. I'm going to talk about this in a minute. And basically, as a very first example, I have created a small test pattern in Mssiah. And let's have a look or a listen to this test pattern. So I have picked a drummer for, well, the sake of this exercise. And I have created just a small pattern, just that we can listen to the sound. And this is basically not very complicated. So I have used, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 instruments, and I left out the cowbell and the claps. And basically, this could be done with just one SID, with some limitations. But if we have all the chance to run it on 2 SIDs, then why not? And this is basically very interesting because if we're going to jump into the configuration and go to the voice map, we can see that we have actually 6 voices which we can use, and then we can assign the instruments to those voices, and we can assign the filter to those voices as well. And here we can see that basically those 6 voices are more or less kind of virtual, and no, they aren't. So voice 1, 2, 3 are really assigned to SID 1, and voice 4, 5, 6 are assigned to SID 2. And here we can simply just say whether we want to use the filter on those voices or not. And this has some kind of benefits to not assign a voice to a filter, because if we're going to use, let's say, a very strong filter, but we want to keep a certain voice out of this, then we can kind of deselect this. But most of the time I'm running a setup like this. I may change the high tom to voice 3, for example, just because to have a low pass filter or kind of low shelf filter on this one as well. But it's not very important for this purpose. And basically it sounds like this. So, and there are 4 different patterns. They sound a little bit differently, and that's probably not really the purpose of this episode. It's just for demonstration purpose only. And basically, now let's kind of stop this whole thing and have a look inside. So let's switch the camera so that we can have a look how this is going to look like. And for this we have to switch off the C64 just to be on the safe side. And that's one kind of negative aspect of using this SD to IC device. We can't open the case anymore, so we have to remove this. And this is the chance to have a small introduction to this one. I actually really like this format because you have the power from the tape port, and you have your IC connector here, and you can even use the kind of a pass-through to attach even more devices. You have your SD card on the top of the case, and you got your pref and next buttons, and that's basically all you need to operate this whole thing. And especially in conjunction with Mssiah, I'm not mounting any disk images. I just save plain to the file system, and therefore I do not even need the buttons here. And that's a very handy, very compact device. Unfortunately, it is a little bit hard to get. I think I got this from Spain about 2 years ago or something like this. They appear every now and then on eBay, and they are a bit expensive. I think they range somewhere between 40 to 50 euros. So that's probably not the cheapest SD to IC device you can get on the market, but I really like the form factor. It has a nice case, and it has some kind of, let's say, stage robustness, stage compatibility, and therefore I like to use this on this machine. So then let's have a look on the inside now. And for this we may have to remove some cables. Oops. Fortunately it was long enough. So let's get rid of this. Going to need this later. And now we can have a look on the inside of this machine. And as you can see, I have replaced the modulator. So let's get to full view here. And I'm using this 16x8 adapter, which is not really recommendable in my opinion. I have ordered them a few years ago, and I think I ordered in total 3 or 4 of them, and at least one was broken. One could be fixed, and what I really dislike about this adapter is that they create some kind of auto level in luminance, and this leads to kind of pumping screens when you run demos, for example, or if you switch between a very dark and a very white screen, then it kind of adapts the luminosity, and this is not the way I prefer to have a modulator. So my other C64s are using those modulator replacements. That's the revision 3, and I think I have covered this in one of my videos as well. I will have a look and post a link in the description settings. And this works really much better than this one, but basically they do almost the very same. You have a chance to replace your old antenna socket by an S-video connector. You got your 3.5 stereo jack connector on this side as well, like here, and then you can have some color adjustments, and you can jumper the way you want to have your sound routed to this socket. And for this one it's even more comfortable because we can connect the sound coming from our FPGASid or from our Mixsid or from our SID directly to the board and have it accessible via this connector. So we do not have to route the sound through the main board, and therefore we have a better audio quality. So that much about this one. And as you can see, I have installed a Mixsid twin SID adapter to this board, and I have used this machine especially for drums, and I found that the old SwinSID Nano works pretty good for drums. And there's some couple of reasons, because Mssiah is using kind of a sampled format, wavetable format for the drums, and the SwinSID Nano sounds very, let's say, 8-bitish, so you get a really lo-fi sound out of it, and you do not have that much noise like the original SIDs, and you have absolutely no filter pumping or something like this, so every drum sound sounds the very same like the previous one, and that's more predictable than using an original SID, and therefore for especially drums I really like the sound of the SwinSIDs. And as you can see, I have removed the video connector because I'm using S-Video all the time, and one of the reasons for using the modulator replacement is to get rid of the old original modulator, which creates a lot of noise, and that's something you don't want when you want to create music, and therefore that's a very nice combo. And while I'm not using the original video connector any longer, I had some space left for adding the 6.3 stereo jack to the board. And as you can see, it is simply applied by a hot glue, and therefore it's totally reversible. So I can easily remove the socket, add back the video connector, and the board is kind of original if I'm going to replace the video modulator as well. So this is pretty beneficial, so I do not have to drill any holes in the case and something like this, which is something I really dislike, and therefore I'm really flexible. And especially for using the Mixsid, I really like the 250/469 boards, because they have some kind of an area where you have access to all the addresses and the I/O signals you need for running stereo SIDs. So it's A8, A5, IO1 and IO2. It's easily accessible by those solder points, and I have simply added some pins to it so I can connect my wires to the board quite easily, so I do not have to use grabbers on the CPU or somewhere else. And this is even more reliable than having some grabbers somewhere in this case. And for running the old SIDs, I need some additional voltage, which I get from here, and the Mixsid is creating this 12-volt level, which is required for the older SIDs, because the 250/469 board only provides 9 volt to the SID socket, and therefore you couldn't run older SIDs. So much about this. Audio is connected directly to the socket, and I have no audio feedback to the board, because this causes some risk that you get some noise back from the board in your audio signal. And since I do not have the video connector here anymore, I'm not going to use any sound out of this machine except for this place, and therefore this is connected directly, and the jumpers for feeding back the sound to the board are not set for this configuration. And well, yeah, as I said, the address and IO signals are fed into the Mixsid by using those jumper wires, and that's basically all we have to do for this one. And what I'm going to talk about today is the so-called Mixsid replacement adapter, and this looks basically like this. I just get rid of this for a while, and that's basically nothing else than a simple pin connector to socket adapter, which uses the pogo pin I have used for those other adapters as well, to get access to this second SID signal here on the FPGASID. And So actually I'm getting the audio out from pin 27 and audio out from the second SID by this pogo pin, and they are routed to those pin header here. So I got ground, left and right signal. So, and that's the reason for creating this adapter, because then I can simply remove this cable here, plug this onto my pin header, and that's all I have to do. And now I have two signals which are identical in terms of level, and I have no amplification, something like this, and they are really the very same. And then I can feed this into my external mixer and have a very good audio quality. And if I want, then I can set a jumper here on this pin header, and then I have even the sound back to the board. So this is interesting for people who want to use this C64 for gaming or other things as well. But especially for this purpose, I'm not interested in, as I said before. And well, we just need to remove those DuPont cables here and this one from here. And then we get the Mixsid out of the system. Put this aside and replace the Mixsid replacement adapter to the board. And now we need to use those jumper wires or those grabbers, or I may create a new cable so that I can use those standard jumper wires as well. And now we need access to A5, just this one, and then we're going to need access to A8, which is this one, and IO1. That's basically here. I mean, for running Mssiah on this machine, we may not use all those address lines. It's just the IO1 which is required, because Mssiah is running on DE00 as a second address. And well, basically that's all we need to do to replace the Mixsid by an FPGASid. Now we have to configure the FPGASid, and we have to put everything back together. And well, yeah, that's the whole purpose of this adapter. And as you can see, it's really quick and simple. And one thing I have added to a different C64, which I haven't here anymore because that was a different project. I have used this so-called internal SD to IC mini device, and we added this to either the side of the case with a small kind of opening, but I told you already I dislike to drill holes and do things with cases, especially with bread pin cases. And another solution was to use some kind of insulating material, and we place this under the tape port because there's usually enough space for it. Maybe here are some legs a little bit longer than usual, and then you have even access to the SD card from the outside, and you can use still use the tape port still, and it's not interfering. And that's a very handy way to add, let's say, a safe functionality to your Mssiah C64 without adding a real floppy drive, or without using a Pi 1541, which is indeed a lot of overkill for Mssiah, since it's not using any fast load or something like this. It's simply just saving and loading files. And as I said, I'm saving plain to the main file system, no disk image is mounted, and therefore those devices are very, very handy. And if you are not looking for, let's say, frequent backups or data exchange or something like this, you can even put the SD to IC device somewhere in your case and add your SD card to it, and then it will be fine for years, no problem at all. So then let's put it back, and if I'm right, the FPGASid should be configured to DE00 already. So fingers crossed that this will start out of the box. Otherwise, we may have to jump into the configuration of the FPGASid, which is basically not planned, because then we need to attach a different drive. So we just have to pay attention that everything fits back. Without interfering somewhere. So we still got some gap here in the rear. But well, okay. So then let's put back our SD device, C device. And then let's switch on this whole thing. As you can see, we got some blinking lights here. I think the LED is broken. It's not lighting up. So see whether we got some pictures. Yes, indeed. And then we can go to, let's go to Diagnostics and see whether the audio is working. It is doing something. That's a good sign. And even SID2 is working. Filter is working as well. Everything is fine. So let's go back, go to drummer, and load the pattern we have used before. And I'm pretty sure it's going to sound differently because it is a different SID we have added to the system. Takes a little moment. There we go. Not that much. Now we're in track mode, so I'm sorry, I have to go to pattern mode. Well, this sounds much opener. There's more clearance in the sound. And if you wonder why the sound changes all the time, I have added an LFO to both SID filters, and therefore they vary up and down, and therefore that's the difference in the drums and in the highs. But basically, as you can hear, it sounds quite good. I mean, what we can expect from Mssiah. And it is quite easy to replace installed Mixsid or even a SIDFX, for example. And even if you have no twin SID solution installed in your C64, then it is very easy to add a FPGASid to it. And if you haven't changed all the things on your C64, it's basically not really required to use this Mixsid adapter. It makes just life a little bit easier, especially for getting two identical audio signals out of the FPGASid without the additional amplification. And yeah, that's basically all I have to say about this whole thing here. And therefore, we have already reached the end of this episode. It's just a little bit more short and compact, but I think that's plenty time of covering things related to this special C64 I have created just for the purpose of using it with Mssiah. So, as usual, thank you very much for watching, and I would highly appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel if you are interested in the content. And you can follow me on Twitter as well, and you can support me on Patreon as well as Ko-Fi. So if you really want to see more content in the future, if you want to continue watching my channel, then feel free to support me, and I would really love to see it. And well, I'm going to add a couple of links in the description settings in the section, so that you can find this stuff later on as well. And as usual, see you for the next episode. Bye bye.